Hello, everyone. Here's Luis Gustavo. You can call me Gustavo. I will be the lecturer for the web application development. So let's just wait a few more minutes so we can start. I think we still have some other students to join us by now. So. Okay, let's start our class now. I forgot. So as you already know, all our classes will be recorded. And I intend to create a link in the Moodle page and release our recordings there. Yeah, okay, so great. Good afternoon, everyone. I already present myself, but I will present again. I'm Luis Gustavo Nardin, but you can refer to me as Gustavo, my middle name. I will be the lecturer for the web application development. So the next 11 to 12 weeks, we will be together on this endeavor. First of all, I would like to welcome everyone. I know that there is two cohort of students that is going to participate in this module, the HCC, the Higher Computing, HCC NCI 2 and DSH ISFC 2, sorry. And the first thing I would like to ask is that the students from the HCC NCI 2 to register or to enroll into the Moodle page on the DSH IFSC2, because we are going to keep just one Moodle page updated. I already added a link on the on HCC-NCI2 web Moodle page. So if you have any problem, you can contact me. Okay. So our lecture today. Okay, sorry for that. The battery for my mouse just finished, so I will need to use my mouse pad here. I thought I had some problems with my laptop today, and it froze twice in the morning. So if I freeze for some reason, I will be back in a moment, just to explain why that may happen. Okay. Okay, so let me start. I will start this lecture with three parts. The first one, I will introduce you to the web application development module, what we are going to see, the topics and the aims. The second part will be an introduction, kind of a review of web architecture and what you have seen in probably in the web design module. And the third part is where we start the new content, which is going to be the XML. So I will share my screen with you and so presenting probably. Okay. So here we are in the module outline. If you have any questions, although you can send it through the chat, I would ask you to just open your microphone and ask the question, because I cannot see the chat in my monitor here, because when I'm presenting, I'm blocked from this view. So if you have any question, just unmute and ask it. Okay, so first of all, I will give you some guidelines about Microsoft Teams. Probably many of the lectures will provide the same guidelines or similar ones, at least. I would ask you to check your access to Microsoft Teams, and I would recommend you to download and install the application on your device instead of using the web version. The web version does not work properly, and it has a very long delay on switching screens. When I switch my slides, it takes sometimes. I have seen people complaining for 1 minute that they could not see the updated version of the slide. Okay, so as I said, all lectures will be recorded and it will be made available. It will be automatically available on Microsoft Stream, but I intend also to post it on our Moodle page. Well, as I just mentioned, we may face some internet connection issues. Today, my problem was not actually with the internet connection, but was with my laptop. For some reason, it froze twice with no reason, apparently. So if there is any problem in the internet connection, or if I drop out, just to stay connected, that I will reconnect. And if you have any problems, please send me an email and we try to work this out. As I already saw, you are not with your webcam on. So yes, please keep your webcams off. I will keep mine on so you can see me for this first and second lecture. Maybe later on, I will also turn off so we can improve our experience through using Microsoft Teams. And another thing is that you should keep your microphone off, but if you have any questions, I would ask you to unmute and ask that. If you don't have a microphone, then you send a message on the chat, and I will look at it and from time to time to see if there's any update. Okay. So what we are going to cover in this on this module, on the web application development module. First, we will see, or we will try to understand and learn how to develop responsive, future-proof, and scalable application. And here, when I say web application, I'm talking about web application. You had the web design module on your previous last year. Now we are going to use that knowledge that you acquired during that module, and we will extend with more features into the client side scripting, but also in the server side scripting of the web application development. Well, you will not only learn different languages like PHP or improve your JavaScript skills, but you will also be introduced to different kinds of languages like XML and different XML technology. Well, as I said, we will look at the functionalities of web pages with the scripting, basically JavaScript. In the server side, we will explore two different languages. One is the JavaScript on the server side, supported by the Node.js, and the other one is the PHP that we are going to look at. And another aim of this module is to critique frameworks, tools, languages, so that are available on the market for developing rich internet application. We will see later what a rich internet application means and what are the main characteristics of this kind of web application. And you will also have an opportunity to try or to investigate different frameworks or tools that you may have interest. And in the end, we will see which are the pros and cons from using client-side and server-side scripting. Okay. So here are the module learning outcomes. So by the end of this module, you will learn how to manipulate and define data structures using a markup language. We will hopefully start to see one markup language today, the XML. You will also learn how to implement a server-side scripting and develop advanced server-side functionality. You will learn, as I just mentioned, PHP and Node.js. You will learn how to critique some frameworks, so analyze which are the main characteristics required before implementing your web application. You will also extend some functionality of web pages using JavaScript, and in the end, you will be able to identify what makes sense to be in the client side of the web application, what makes sense to be in the server side of this application. Okay. So here's the table of contents, let's say, for this module. If you already logged into Moodle, you saw that we have the same structure represented there. I didn't represent it broken down into weeks, but I used the topics because many of those, some of these topics will be covered in more than 1 week, and some others will be just half of a week. So that's the content that we are going to follow today. As I said, we are going to see an introduction to web architecture, a brief review of HTML and CSS. By review here, I will ask you to do a class exercise, and then we will start to introduce you to the XML. As I mentioned, all notes and resources are available on Moodle, and also this recording. This is the link for the Moodle page. that you should log in. So if you are in the HCC NCI2 cohort, you have a different, you have been automatically assigned a different Moodle page. I would ask you to go to this one that I'm showing on the screen and register or enroll yourself. If you log in into the HCC NCI2 Moodle page, I included some instructions of how you can do that. I included this link and also a password that is required for you to self-enroll on the Moodle page. I will navigate you through the Moodle page in a few after this presentation. So, but just to be sure that everyone has access. If you don't have access to this web page, please contact the IT. I saw in the comments before I start talking that there are some problems with the IT. There is some delay, probably because they are quite very busy at this time. But yeah, you will need to log a ticket there in order to solve the issue. Well, just to clarify, our lectures are on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. and we will deliver it through the MS Teams. Just a note, the timetable may change sometimes in the first or second week, so just pay attention for the time of the classes. But I suppose that this will not happen this year. Okay. The grading for this module, so this is a 10 credit module. In it, I will go back one slide. So just one thing, in addition to the Tuesday and Thursday lectures that you have with me, you probably also have a lab class that is scheduled for Friday, but I will not be the lecturer for the lab. I will be only the lecturer in the for the lectures. Okay. So this module is a 10 credit module. We will have two assessments. One, both of them is 50% of your final grade. The first one, the delivery will be on week 8. And the second one, which is the project, it was going to be on week 12. For the first continuous assessment, or for the first assessment, the idea is that you will need to develop a HTML web page or website with using HTML, CSS, and also integrate some XML features into this website. And you will also need to perform research in a topic of your interest. We will clarify this in the second or third week. We will release a description of this assessment and what are the possible topics that you can choose for your research. And the project is for the end of the year, week 12, and it's going to be a web application that will develop using JavaScript, HTML, CSS, JSON, and Node.js or PHP. Then it depends on your preferences in this case. Also, the project description, we will release it later on, probably on week 5. There are some resources in this presentation, but I also included some links on the Moodle page. Okay? So this is the last slide. I will just stop sharing my screen just to see if anyone has any question by now. Just a second.
Is the group work individual? I mean, is the projects individual or group work?
Yeah, the project will be a group work, both of them, especially because we have 90 students in this module, so it would not be feasible. So it's going to be group work in groups of 3, up to 3. Okay, we may create some exceptions for 4 at most, but the preferred size of the groups are 3. Yeah, I see that there's a lot of questions about the projects. Yes, I will just go on here. One question. John Farrow is asking a question also. I take it that we will use MySQL in a local host. Well, in the project is your choice, depends on your preferences. On the class, yes, we will have, when we are learning about PHP, we will use we will integrate Tomcat, MySQL, and with PHP, yes. Let me see if there's any other question. Yeah, so yeah, most of the questions is related to a group or individual. Yes, as I said, it will be group for both of them. Yep.
Do we choose the groups, or are you going to choose the groups?
You choose the groups, yes. So you are in the 2nd year, so you had at least half a year left school year to know your colleagues in the class. So it's going to be easier. So you can choose your groups, okay? Okay. So Yogan, sorry if I pronounce it wrong. Yogan?
Don't worry, it happens. So, are we using Notepad for web applications development this year?
Well, the IDE that you use or the text editor that you use is of your preference. I initially for the first part of the module in which we will learn about XML, I will use Notepad, but I may also introduce you to some other IDEs that may help you with other parts of the XML technology, like for validating the XML or for validating the XSLT or XSD that we create. But yeah, initially we will use Notepad++, and today I will use it to show how to structure a XML file. But yeah, but then I will try to increase it, introduce other technologies. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Is there any other question?
Yeah, quick one. With the groups, you might have already said it, but like, how many people per group maximum is it?
Yeah, we will release a formal description of that, but we usually have at most 3 people per group.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, and you saw that we will have 2 assessments: the CA1, which is a smaller project, and a bigger project at the end. Ideally, you will keep the same group for both assessments, but this is also not mandatory. But we will release this information in a more formal way on the Moodle page later on. As I said, probably on week 2 or 3, or next week or week after. Okay. Okay, so here you probably have a class. What's up for the class? Okay, okay. If you know anyone that is still having problems joining the class, please ask them to send me an email, and I will check it later. And also try to open a ticket with IT. Okay, so I will share my screen again. Okay, so here is our Moodle page. As I said, there are 2 Moodle pages that were created for the web application development. One is for the HCC NTI2. I already sent an announcement asking people to join, to enroll to the other module, but those that didn't receive or try to log in into this web page, you will see this note saying that you should log into this Moodle page and enroll using this password that I'm showing here, 2020 #WAD. Okay, if you have any issues. Once you do that, all the remaining of the lecture will be conducted and all the content will be posted in this BSHC IFSC2 webpage. And that's because this cohort has many more students than the other one. So here is the structure of our Moodle page. So there is some announcements that I will post. If you have any question about the module, or if you have questions about exercises or tutorials and that you want some clarification or explanation, please enter in this Ask Question link and send a forum question. Okay, why instead of sending me an email? You can send me an email, but then it's going to be restricted, the conversation between two of us. If you post in this Ask a Question, then everyone in the class may help me to answer the question. Maybe I didn't face the problem, someone else faced the problem. It's something very specific to the environment, something like that. So then everyone can contribute in answering the question. And I try to answer them as fast as I can. Sometimes I am in lectures and I will not be able to answer, but probably in 1 or at most 2 days, I try to answer that, okay? If I don't answer, please send me an email if I need something. Okay, so here's my contact information. There is some on the right side, some of the announcements appear here. There is the online users, and I will also post, in addition to the resources list of books that I showed you on the slide, I will also provide you some useful links about different technologies on this section of the Moodle page. And I will also, and below we have the assessment and feedback. So as you see, I already included the 2 assessments that we will have, but I will add the description and also submission link as soon as we have formalized this description. Okay, and below you will have all the content that you will be able to access. So all the slides that I'm presenting will be posted here, and I will also add a link below the slides with the recording of each one of the classes. Okay, I think that's it. Is there any other question? Let's just stop presenting. Okay, let me see. I see that there is some hands. Yogan, also, do they still have a question, or is this from the previous one? Okay, and oh, yeah, I'm sorry for the pronunciation. Michaela, do you have any question? I see that you have your
No,
hand.
I asked it already earlier on. It was about the amount
Oh,
of
okay.
people in the group. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Yeah, just if you want to ask questions, you can unmute your microphone, but you can also raise your hand if I'm speaking. But after I answer, I would ask if you could put your hands down on there, so I can be sure that I answer everyone's question. Okay.
What application will we be using for this class? Is it MySQL?
Well, MySQL is not going to be the focus for this class. For this class, as I showed, the topics that we will cover is XML. So we will start to see XML. You already had HTML, CSS, and some JavaScript in the web design. So we will use these technologies now, and we will add on top of that. So we will learn a little bit more about JavaScript. We will learn about jQuery, which is a framework that makes our life easier to develop applications using JavaScript, but this is in the client side. Then when we move to the server side, we will learn about PHP and Node.js, which is based on JavaScript, which interprets JavaScript. So when we are learning about the PHP, then we may use MySQL for the class, but it's not going. I will not teach MySQL at all. Okay, it's just going to support our learning. Oh, okay. For IDE or for editing, yes. Initially will be Notepad++, but later on we may introduce other technologies. Okay, so let's start. No one has any other question. Let's start. I will share again my screen. Close this. And okay, so the web application development, we will start today with a brief introduction of web architecture. What is web? Where it comes from? What is the main intentions or purposes of it? Just for historical purposes, this is I will try to go very quick on this one. Okay. So we will cover I will give a brief introduction about the web. I will present also the client-server architecture and also show you, ask you to develop an HTML page just to refresh your mind or refresh your skills in using HTML or developing HTML. Okay, but let's start. So, as you may have seen previously, the web is one part of the internet, and the internet was developed since the 70s in a project called ARPANET in the USA, in the United States, and that ARPANET project gave life to the TCP/IP protocol that is the main protocol used in our networks nowadays. Okay, so basically during that time, the main purpose of the ARPANET or the internet was to allow different institutions to communicate with one another. It was purely for remote access, some computer resources in different labs, transfer files from one computer to another, and allow the communication among users via email messages. And email at that time, the email infrastructure is similar from that time, but the actual application or how you look at those emails was very different. Nowadays, everything is graphic. At that time, everything was textual, so just text messages and text that was allowed or transferred from one location to the other. Okay, so this was in the beginning, the 70s, and then in the 80s. Then after the internet or the network interconnecting these resources became established in the scientific community mainly, one researcher had the idea of not only allow the transfer of information and access of resources through these networks, but also develop this the www, what we know today as the web, for releasing information about his experiment work. And basically, the www or web is based on the internet technologies, which are TCP/IP and DNS. Okay, so basically, the TCP/IP is the protocol that allows us to interconnect or communicate among ourselves, or the devices to communicate among themselves. They establish different addresses that allows us to reference each one of these devices in the network, but it's not very practical for us to remember those numbers, 198, 168.168.0.37. What does it mean? There's not a very, it's not a very good way for people, at least for humans, to remember these addresses. So the DNS is a way of converting more quotable, human understandable addressing format into an IP or internet address. Okay, so the DNS is the component on the web that transforms the URL or URI that you type on your browser into a specific address, IP address, in order to be able to reach or to go to that resource in the network and reach that resource. Okay, so the web is basically supported or based on these technologies that you can see up here. As you can see, all of these technologies are quite old. Probably most of you were not even born when those technologies were developed. When HTTP was developed, I was very young. I was starting to play with computers, but as you can see, all this support, the web is supported by the HTTP, which is the Hypertext Transfer Protocol that allows us to communicate in the browser. Markup languages like HTML that you already had in the previous lecture, and the XML, which stands for Extended Markup Language, that started to be developed in '98. The style language CSS, which allows us to format our web page. So the HTML holds the content, the CSS holds the formatting of that content, and the HTTP is what allows us to transfer that content from one machine to another. And as time passes, there was also developed a specific language called JavaScript that allows us to make our web page or HTML dynamic. So it allows it to be interactive rather than just the passive showing information. Okay, and these are the technologies, and these technologies are structured in two main components: the server side or the backend, and the front end or the client. And we will see today that those two components communicate, and we can place different parts of our web application in each one of those components. Depends on the need or what we would like to achieve for this application. So as you know, today, based on triggered by the web, the internet, as we know today, it supports many more applications or many more uses than it was supported back then in the 80s, 90s. Now we allow not only the file transfer, email, but we also have remote control. We are doing our lectures through the internet, so it also allows us to have conference online and other different types of applications. But the web was the first communication medium that conquered the world within years. The previous one, if I'm not wrong, was the TV, and it took several decades in order for the television to reach most of the world. It took several decades, while the web or the internet, instead of taking decades, it took several years. So it's a medium that allows us that shorten the distances between people, and it allows us to and it is also attractive for business. While the television was more attractive for entertainment and for house use, the internet, since it's bidirectional, meaning that there is an interactivity that is allowed on the internet, it was an attractive medium for companies rather than just personal use. Okay. Yeah, so some of the special features of the web that is not possible in some other mediums are the worldwide availability of the internet. So you can reach wherever in the world you would like. It's multimedia. It has a multimedia capability. It not only transports text, but also video, audio, as we are experiencing now. Yeah, it has a duplex relationship, bidirectional communication, and allows not only human to communicate, but it also allows or enable that small devices communicate among themselves, creating the web of things. You have probably heard about experiments or certain house equipment like fridge or microwaves that have capability to connect to the web and also provide some information. There is also some studies in which people try to understand how to schedule the fridge, or how to make the fridge to send some notifications to the owner when there is a lack of milk or some other produce inside of it. Okay, so all of this were possible using this type of medium. Okay, but well, let's concentrate. Let's start in a more simple things and what we are going to see in this module. So first, we have three main components for a web application, and in these three main concepts is a web page. A web page is basically a text or images or different types of media that is shared, and you can add also hyperlinks that allows you to navigate among different of this web page. When we have a collection of web pages, we have a website, and that is encapsulated under the same organization or under the same responsible individual. All of those web pages and websites are usually accessible through a web browser. Usually we have here on the right side, we have the four most known web browsers in the market: Firefox, Internet Explorer, which is kind of almost dead by now. So the Microsoft is changing it or promoting the Edge as their new supported browser. Safari for Macintosh, Mac OS, and Google Chrome that is one of the most widespread browsers in the market. I think in the past few years they have lost some of the market to Firefox, to Mozilla Firefox, and also because Mac has become so widespread that people are using more Safari as their web browser, and Internet Explorer is quite not much used. Okay, so here just to show you a diagram of a timeline of the number of websites. So as I said, in the beginning, we have the internet just for sharing resources or accessing some resourcing or transferring files. Once the web or www was World Wide Web was implemented or developed, then you can see an increase from 93 with 100 websites to now, well, this is a log, so to around billions. Billions of websites, and we are nowadays becoming even more dependent on the internet and the web technology as we put much more effort in developing. So this increase in the development of websites is also reflected in the need for web applications, and that's one of the motivations for having this module in this program. Okay. As I already mentioned, well, when we are going to implement a web application, which is we can break it in 4 different parts. A web application. First thing, you would need to develop a web page and using HTML and CSS. This you had already seen in the web design module. So it's a visual design and allows you to create some documents. But when you are preparing or when you are developing those applications require some standards, okay? And these standards are defined open source by some web authoring authorities, like the W3C that specifies the structure of the HTML or the XML. And these authoring entities, they create and define what we call tags, attributes, and data that are allowed in a web page or these web technologies, languages that exist. We will see here one of these technologies today, hopefully, which is XML. We will at least have an introduction of that. We have also the web programming or the web application development. So you have the web page, you may have some standards that are defined by some organizations or entities. And we have web application development or web programming that allows us to develop some software or make this web pages dynamic that allows us to interact with it. And here we have JavaScript or PHP that allows these interactions to happen. And in the end, we have the browser that supports all these technologies. Okay, so the web browser is the client application that is responsible for interpreting everything that is defined by an authority and which is structured by some web designer and implemented by a web developer. So basically, what is a web application then? So it's a kind of a client-server application. We have, as I said, 2 main components. We have the client component that usually is our browser, and we have our server side, which you can think as a single machine, a server machine that answers the request to the client. So, and this interaction happens multiple times, allowing these services provided to the client, to the individual accessing that application, dynamic and interactive. Okay. Okay. I think the main aspects that you should take from this slide is the following. There is 2 main components: the client component, the server component, and there is and the web application allows this interactivity between these 2 components and the communication among them to provide some sort of service. Examples of this kind of a web application is Facebook, Gmail, LinkedIn web page, even Moodle. Moodle is a good example of a web application that is very tailored for educational purposes. It has very specific response to behavior of the users, and it also implements some security for accessing the information that is available there. As I said, the client-server architecture is a 2-tier system. You have your client side that communicates with the server side that performs some operation, queries some database, and provides some response. So these two tiers is composed of the client and server. We usually call the client as the front end and the server as the back end. Most of the times, the back end is also includes a repository or a database that will store the information that will be processed by the server and reply back to the client. But not always this is the case. And I see that most of you or some of you were interested in knowing if the MySQL were going to be covered in this module, and the main reason probably is because when you have the server side, you always have the database, a database, not always MySQL, but some database supporting that operation. And in the client side is responsible for rendering and creating the images and the visualization that is provided to the end user, and it also responsible for submitting the request to the server and receiving the response and interpreting this response. Basically, if we look in a sequence diagram, we would see this kind of architecture. We have the client machine and the server machine. In the client machine, we are always, when we talk about web application, we are always talking about the browser. So the browser is the client on the client machine, is the client application, the client machine that do perform the requests to the server, or through which the web application requests make the request to the server side. Okay, and this browser usually communicates with the operating system, and it goes to the server. Once it arrives in the server, that request, the web server will do some processing. Most of the time, as I just mentioned, it will access some repository. Usually, this is structured as a database, but not always. It can be also structured as a file, and we will see that XML can be used as a storage, as a repository for the information that is going to be shared through your web server. But let's say here we have a database. This database is queried by the web server. The web server performs some processing on top of that data, and the response is provided back to the browser, and the browser then renders that information back to the user. Okay, so that's the simplest architecture that we have for a web application, which follows this client-server architecture. Okay, we could also have multiple tiers, not only two. As I said, the client is always here, but then the backend or the server side of my architecture is broken in more pieces. It may have a processing tier, which is responsible for performing the processing or operations on top of the data. And there is a data storage tier, which is responsible for storing that information. That is usually the case in order for you to dissociate what the hardware or the components in your architecture that are responsible for handling the interaction and the processing with the client, and the one that is responsible for storing and structuring the data that is easier fetched by the processing tier. Okay. Well, the three tier is also one possibility. There are many other different types of ways you can break down your web infrastructure or web architecture in order to support the same type of web application. Okay, so that said, here's the client-server architecture. Is there any question about this for now? Okay, so this was intended to be a review of what you probably have seen in the web design or in other modules in your in the program. But yeah, so I didn't go that deep on that. So here what we have is the, to support this, as I have already mentioned, we have the HTML websites that are structured to hold the content or present content to the user. And when you have the HTML host the content, the CSS will perform some layout structuring, and then you have the JavaScript that performs some dynamic operations on that web page. Okay, these are just two slides just to say that we will use these two technologies, and based on that, I would like you to perform to do a class exercise. So even though we have this lecture lab, since this web application is a very practical module, I would over the lecture, I will also give you some class exercises, small ones that you can quickly perform in order to see if you understood and raise some questions that may be interesting to answer during the class. So the first thing I will do, I will stop sharing my screen now. Oh, no, sorry, I will not stop sharing my screen. What I will do, I will share on Moodle. Sorry. This is security issues. Okay, so if you access the Moodle page, you will find this lecture 1 class exercise. And I would like you to take 10 minutes to try to do this exercise by yourself. For doing this exercise, you can use Notepad++. And the idea is the following for this exercise. There is a document in this page, which is this one. What I want you to do is to reproduce this page, which is a PDF document, as a HTML page, a web page, okay? And the idea is that you will use the two technologies I just mentioned, HTML and CSS. So, and here are some links for a quick review on HTML and CSS. Instead of asking you to type all this content, the text content is already available on this link here on the text file. And below here, I do have some web page specification. So I would like the web application development to be actually a link pointing to the Moodle page of this class. And once you click that link, I would like that a new tab is open in the browser, okay? I would like you to format the title with a Verdana font style, font family, and font size 20. The aims, learning outcomes, and topics headings that shows up, I would like to be Arial and 14 pt in the color blue. The text will be Arial and font 11 size. And the table that shows up at the bottom here, I would like you to make it with a padding. So the distance between the border and the content here should have 5 pixels of padding. So I will give you 10 minutes or 15 minutes better to structure that or to try to do this exercise. And I will, after that, I will briefly show the end result, the solution to that exercise, and I will see if anyone has any questions about it, okay? So you can start. And since stopping recording creates multiple files, I will just keep myself in mute and I will leave it on the recording. I will just stop, and I will not stop sharing my screen because here we have the exercise. If you have any questions, just send me a message, please. So I'm just reading some of the questions here. There is one question about if there is any theory exam for this module. No, there is no theory exam this year. It will be practical, both of the assessments. And there was also a question about if a bit short in terms of time for doing this exercise. The idea here is not for you to do that. Is more for you to remember how to do those things in the to revive your memory, and also to revive also the questions you may had about this technology. So don't be afraid about the timing. I just would like to make a short review before introducing you to new technologies. Hello. Hi. I know that probably is not enough time for you to complete, but I will actually, at least I saw in the chat that there are some people that don't remember much about the HTML, or they didn't have much experience, and they are having some problems. So what I will do, I will show you how to structure the base of this document, the HTML and the CSS, and how to link those two things. And then you finish until Thursday, and Thursday I release the solution for that. Okay, so because we don't have much time today, I still need to go through the XML content, which is a long content. So okay, I will just a second. So let me organize my screen here to separate parts. So this is document, and what
I almost.
What, sorry?
I don't have time for the table, but.
Yeah, the table, I think it takes a little bit more time, even to structure it into HTML. But I will not show the complete solution here. I will just.
It's not that I'm a slow typer. That's the problem.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no problem. I will I will try to level everyone at the same, put everyone at the same level with respect to the understanding of HTML and CSS. Since this is a very large class with 90 students, so I can understand that there are differences in the understanding of the technologies. So just to give a kind of initial startup for you. Okay, so what I'm asking is to create a HTML document with the content that is on the left side on my screen here. So the first thing you need to create is a file with extension HTML that makes life easier. And this HTML document always, well, it starts with a HTML tag. And as you may remember, all the HTML, all the tags must be closed. So we have the HTML. All the HTML documents or web pages, they must have a head that specifies the title and gives some other meta information about the web page that are not going to be rendered, but they will be executed but not rendered on the screen. So we have the this head tag, which defines this area or this part of the document that has this this information. And one of the tags that must exist is the tag called title. Okay. Okay. And this, we can call it class exercise. There are several other tags that you can include here in the head, but let's say that we have a head with the title. Oops, sorry. Now here, and all the .html has a head, and they also have a body. Okay, so this is the basic structure of a HTML document. And in this body, you can include some text. P is a tag for paragraph. So we can include here like text. If we save this document, and if I open it in a browser, a second. I open it in the browser, you will see that shows up almost empty page with a text on the left side of the screen, right? Which is what I instructed the HTML, how I structured the HTML. what I'm asking you is to include in the body the content that is in this part of the document. You need to remember some of the tags. One of the tags is H1 for heading 1. So, and we can type web application development. If we open the same document again, refresh. Now, instead of text, it shows up web application. Okay. If I need to include a heading, which is a smaller or a lower in the hierarchy, we have an H2, which is heading number 2 for aims. And you have up to level 5. So you have 5 different levels. And here you see that you need to add some bullet points. In HTML, to include bullet points, you use the UL for a list of elements. And for each one of the items in this list, you will use the item. So this is going to be item number 1. And item number 2. Here that I forgot to say, I'm using Notepad++, and it already detects some issues, at least highlights in a way that is visible. Okay, so the HTML. So if I save this one and I open again the browser, now, oops, sorry. Now you see aims and item number 1. Well, you should do this for all this content, right? And in order to make, instead of a symbol, like a dot symbol, to make a numeric, instead of using UL tag, you would use OL tag for the order. The U is for unnumbered lists, and this for ordered, unordered, and this is for ordered. If we do change that, you will see that we have a list now that is numeric here on the left side, okay? Instead of, let me open. Sorry for that. Okay, I will not go through the table. I would ask you to do the table later. What I would like to show you is, okay, this is the content of the web page, but as we saw, it's not well formatted. It's not formatted the way we'd like to, as the specification requires. So for doing the layout part, we need a CSS file. So here's the CSS. And in order to connect the HTML with the CSS file, you need to include in the head a new tag, which is the link, and style sheet. Oh, sorry, it's a rel relationship as a style sheet, src, and then the name of the file. Okay. Well, if we show again, refresh the web page, you will see that no change happened. Why? Because my CSS file is not, it has nothing, it's empty. Okay. So let's say I want to make this web application development blue. What I need to do, I need to identify some of the components, some of the tag or some identifier in this HTML document that I can reference in the CSS in order to make that instruction. So in the CSS, I can say H1. So for the element H1 on the HTML document, I would like the font color, the color be blue. I save the CSS. If I did it right, oops. go back. Did I type something wrong? Can you see something wrong in there? I typed something wrong. Oh, okay. Sorry for that. Yeah, here's no sources href. That's the problem. Okay. If we do this, hopefully, oh, okay. So now it's right. So see that a minimal error, like here, I thought it was source, like when you are using the script, here is source, but when it's a link has a reference, h reference. So I'm linking this HTML document to a CSS document, and I'm saying that the H1, I want the H1 to be blue, and let's say that I would like the H2 elements on my HTML font size 14 pt. If we go back here and we refresh, you see a minimal increase in the size. Let's put it. Let's make this one font size 20. This one 18. So you see that there was an increase in the size of the font here and also these aims. The idea for me to show you that is just to remind you how to structure a document. Let's do it in another time. So if you can do it over this next 2 days, and then I show you the solution on Thursday. Is that fine? Okay. New messages. And just a second. Yeah, there was a question about the doc type. Yes, it's correct. When we are going to start a document, we usually up here, we start with the doc type HTML to define the type of the document. I just didn't include it just to make it simple, but it's correct. So we should start with the doc type in the beginning. So Lloyd Ports that pointed it out. Okay. Okay. Type OL. Okay, there is a question from Bala, so asking if you are going to earn extra marks for doing extra exercises and tasks. Actually, no, we are tied to the 50-50 for the assessment. These extra class exercises is for you to practice and to understand how the technology works. So when you need to face or to develop your web application, you will already have experience implementing some simple tasks, okay? Okay, so Eogon is asking about the the header to be a link. It must be a link in the specification. Here I'm just showing an example, just to show in the case if you are going to fulfill all the requirements in the specification, you would need to add a hyperlink to the web application and add here the URL to the Moodle page, okay? Just for that. Okay. And there is someone asking for 10 minutes break. Well, I can give you 5 minutes, 5-minute break, because I took longer than I expected for this HTML parts for the introduction. So let's have 5 minutes and then we come back to start the HTML from there, okay? We will probably not cover the whole HTML slides today, but we continue on Thursday then. Okay. Thank you. I will mute my microphone now.
Gustavo, you have your screen on, by the way, if you're sending emails. You're also muted.
Yeah, sorry for that. Yeah, I was muted. And actually, I was sending an email because there are several students that are saying that they could not find the link, so I'm sharing the link.
Oh, no, fair. I just wanted to make sure, just in case you were sending emails and people can see it, you know.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I completely forgot. Just a second, I will reply those students because okay, I think I answered all the requests. I think we can come back, right? I see that there is one hands up. Is there anyone that have any question about the content?
I finished.
Yes, please, Vitaly.
Yeah, I finished.
Okay. All right. So
I meant I finished the task.
Oh, you finished the task? Congratulations. So yeah, if you want to, if you are getting the response and you are comfortable with it, that's okay. If you want me to check, or if any one of you would like to check if you completed the task correctly, you can send me an email. Later on today, I will add assignment task on week 1 on the introduction, so you can post it. It's not graded; it's gonna be 0 grade, but so I can get it and also give some feedback if I over time. Okay. All right. So okay. So let's start the main topic. Up to now, what we have seen was more review of what you had previously on other on the web design module last year, probably. Okay. Those of you that did not attend the web design or are not confident that you remember the content of this module, I would encourage you to contact the computing support group. There is on your Moodle page on and also here on our Moodle page. Let me switch back to our Moodle page. On our Moodle page on the right side, there is a link for the computing support group. Okay, so if you click here, then you will move to a different Moodle page, and they have different courses or that you can take in order to remember those technologies. Okay, there is more about Python, Java, but they also have instructions for web design, and you can also schedule some appointment with Emer, so she can help you with that too. Yeah, and as I said, we will not cover the HTML on this program, even though we are going to use. We will have a more in-depth view on the JavaScript part, but not in the HTML and CSS. Okay, so let's start then with the new content for this module, which is the XML. And XML stands for Extensible Markup Language. Okay? So the XML is a markup language similar to HTML, but the HTML. But the HTML has a very specific purpose, which is to convey or to hold content for a web page. The XML, or the Extensible Markup Language, is a more general language that allows you to design and structure data that you will share with other applications, or that you may use also for visualization. We will see different uses of this technology later on today in this slide. So the XML was designed to carry data and not to display the data, as you will see. So the HTML, it was also, in the beginning, it was a mix of presentation and carrying data or content. But over the years, there was a separation of those two main functionalities, and the HTML is more towards carrying the content, and the CSS is responsible for structuring that content. But the HTML is interpreted by the browser, so it's rendered into a visual output, while the XML content or XML documents, they are not intended to be visualized in a browser. It's only designed to have your data structured in a hierarchical way. Okay. Another thing that is different than the HTML and other markup languages is that the XML tags, or the symbols or the tags that you have in the language, are not predefined. So you can define your own tags as you desire, and there is no wrong or right in the tag label. Of course, there are some rules you must follow, but there is no wrong or right. It's just a matter then to put a meaning to that specific tag and share that meaning with others when you are sharing your XML document. Yeah, the XML is designed to be self-descriptive, and here by self-descriptive, it means that it should be interpretable by a machine, but if a human looks at a XML document, it should understand what that document carries, what that structure or data means in some sense. Okay. And the XML is a W3C recommendation. If you go to our Moodle page, you will see that under the resources label, I added a W3C XML specification link. So if you want, you can go to the actual specification of this markup language and look at how it works in detail. Here we are going to cover the basics. So one of the things is that XML does not do anything, meaning that it does not perform any action. It is not responsible for displaying anything. It is only responsible for structuring and holding the data that is going to be transported or to be transferred from one machine to another, or from one application into another. Okay. Here we have an example of an XML document. It's a very simple note, a very simple document that is structured using tags. The tags are those symbols that comes with the less than and greater than. And we have, every time that we have an open tag, we must have a closing tag. And to refer to a closing tag, we have this slash before the tag name in this case. So for the note tag, we have this note tag closing. For the start, we have a closing. And then inside we can define, well, even here the note is already specified by me, but all of those other tags are defined by the person who specifies or who creates the XML. Here we have a note that has a to, a from, a heading, and a body. Okay? So you could think not as a note, you could even think as an email, so you could replace note by email. And anyone that look at this XML document would understand that there is a message being conveyed, or there is some content that is being stored. And we usually understand that, well, if everything that is under the note is related to the note, so the first thing is that everything that is inside this note, starting and closing tag, is related to the note. You see that there is a sender or a person who creates, a target for this note, which is Stu. And then there is a from who generated this note. There is a title or a heading, that's a reminder, and there is a body that specifies or describes the content of that note. So the XML, when you look at the XML, is very clear because we defined the tags clearly. It's clear how for a human to interpret and to understand the meaning of the information that it's stored in it, it's conveying. Okay, and yeah, basically that's it. But the XML does not do anything in the sense it does not perform or instruct any operation at all. Okay. So the extensible markup language, as I said, is a markup language that defines a set of rules for encoding documents or encoding data that are both human readable and machine readable. Okay, so we could have the same content structured in a completely different way. We could have simply a text with a to space Tov, from space Johnny, heading space reminder, and body space, and then the message we would convey. But for a computer to differentiate what is the text, what is the content, and what is the tag or the meaning of that content would be much more difficult. So the XML brings this meaning to the content of a document. And this makes this document not only readable by humans, as we just saw on the previous slide with the note, but it's also readable by a machine because it can identify the tags when it opens and closes, and it can then link these tags to some meaning in the application that you are developing. Okay. Well, this standard is an open source standard defined by W3C XML. The last version of this specification is from 2008, so it's quite old. But if you check on the W3C website, you will see that the working group that was improving or changing this specification has been terminated. So they actually get into a point that there is no more improvement into this language. And this language already provides us a lot of resources for allowing machines to communicate one with the other. And when these machines communicate one with the other, you can think this as one application also releasing their services or one application releasing services to another. And these services are provided or released through these XML formatted data. Okay. And why XML then? Why not using simple text? Okay. As I just mentioned, the XML allows us to embed some meaning into the content and makes it very clear what is the content and what is the tag or the meaning that you want to impose on that text. It's a text base, so it is not binary. So you can read with any text editor and you can read that content and share that content. It's portable since it uses ask, so you can move it from one machine to another without losing the interpretability of that content. And it's also CPU and OS independent, meaning that it's not tied to any operating system like Windows or Linux, and it does not depend on any microprocessor technology. So, and here when I say it's not tied to any CPU, it's because if you nowadays our machines are mostly Intel based or Intel-like based, 886 or these types of microprocessors. So even if you try to execute one application in a machine with an Intel microprocessor or AMD microprocessor, you will be allowed. But there are other hardware architectures like mainframes or even server microprocessor architectures that they use different encoding for text and for the data, and this is overcome by the XML because everything is transformed as a text, and can be ported to any of those machines. Another why using also XML? Well, another thing is that there is no need for special tools. Like you saw, we will probably use Notepad++ or some other editor that you would like to use, but you don't need any specific expensive proprietary tool to specify your XML. Well, it has a low cost of entry since it's a simple standard, as you saw, we just saw in the previous slide, XML note being shown, which is very simple. And yeah, it separates the content from the mini, and it was effective. Yeah, I think this is the main advantages. And why do we need to learn these XML? Well, I think the previous slide already provided some of the benefits of using this markup language. And by the way, the HTML, you can think it as a special XML language. Okay, it's a XML tailored language. But why do we need to learn? Well, if we want to learn how to structure our data or restore our data in an open format that is portable, it's good to have it. More than that, many of the APIs that is available on different applications using XML as their standard format for exchanging the information. Okay? For example, if you go to this link that I'm showing down here, this irishrail.ie, api.irishrail.ie, real time, you will get into a web page that specifies or has the specification of an XML that allows you to interact with the Irish Railway timetable for the trains, and you can access that information through XML format. And based on that, you could incorporate that in your application. So you have the Irish Rail website or web application, and you have your own application. And when you want to understand or to know about the timetable of trains, you just make your web application to request information through an API to this other web application. This information needs to come structured in a certain way so you can interpret it. And the way it is done is using XML. If you go to our Moodle page, you will see that there is a timetable shown there, but that timetable